Hello everyone, Revan619 here. How the devil are you? In the last video, I covered what I thought was the most new player friendly build to go with. And so I covered that, and I've also got an entire playlist on how to understand the game and everything like that. But as with all things old, it's not as shiny and, well, clickable as something new. So with that in mind, I wanted to sort of discuss on how you go about building your team. You see, Rogue Trader is not all about combat. It's a CRPG, so the roleplay is the heavy aspect. However, when you're building your retinue, there are 13 skills you need to cover, and even when you're on your ship, you can only use the skill checks of the party that you had on your last active mission. So that means on your team of 5 companions and yourself as the 6th, you need to be able to cover 13 skills. On lower difficulties, this is something very easy to do, and you might not even need to worry about it because you might just passively do so. But on higher difficulties like Unfair, you really have to dedicate each companion and yourself to covering 2 skills and making sure that your synergy is there to cover all the skills. But what are all those skills? Well, there is Athletics, Awareness, Carouse, Coercion, Commerce, Persuasion, Demolitions, Logic. Then you have the 3 lore skills, which is Imperium, Warp, and Xenos. And then you have Medicate and Tech Use. Now, Tech Use and Logic are going to be sort of your chest opening stuff as well as your computer interactions. Your lore skills can be everything from traps to just understanding what's going on. Medicate is mostly going to be for using healing items in game, but you will find some world checks for that. Demolition is going to be to destroy traps. Awareness is going to be to spot those traps and hidden items. Athletics is going to be to get to those hard to reach places. Then you've got Carouse, which you don't often see too much. Like Commerce, it's one of the 2 least active skills on the check, but it's in order to be able to get through a tough situation. You've then got your Coercion and your Persuasion. Now, Coercion and Persuasion tend not to overlap. You normally pick one or the other. So that means across your 6 companions, you need to cover 12 skills rather than 13. So that's fairly easy to do, but that means you're going to be limited on who you have in your party. Now, because the devs are gracious in themselves, they've actually given us a way that we can cover 6 skills on just 1 companion, and that is Jay. So Jay can cover a multitude of skills thanks to her unique origin. Because of Jay's unique origin, she can use Fellowship to cover intelligence skills. Now, I know everyone on Reddit loves Be Smart, but Be Smart is an absolute noob trap for low difficulty. Maximum invested intelligence will not reach minimum invested Fellowship. So Jay using Fellowship to cover 6 skills at 200, which is what you need to guarantee successes on Unfair, is incredibly possible. However, using Be Smart, even to get to 100 intelligence, is a feat in itself. Chances are you might only get to 70 or 80, which means that you actually can't even begin to pass the checks on Unfair. Even with maximum invested skills, that's going to be 60, so you might be looking at 140. With Jay, she can easily get her Fellowship to 120, but she doesn't need to. You see, she gets massive bonuses to some different skills in Lore Imperium, Commerce, Tech Use, Coercion, and Persuasion. So that means there's 5 skills there that are just instantly covered by the fact that you're getting Reputation, which is part of her Gold Trader bonus, which means that I then tend to just invest her all into Logic. Because of all these bonuses, she'll naturally cover Imperium, Tech Use, Commerce, Coercion, Persuasion. So by investing everything into Logic and even taking the base skill and sometimes the advanced skill, Jay can cover 6 of them, which frees up a lot of the party that you can use. Otherwise, without Jay, you'd have to use Pascal because he's the only operative who comes with high enough intelligence to be able to cover Tech Use and Logic. Even then, he will still be outshined by Jay. When it comes to your other companions, you're going to think about the roles that they fulfill. So you're probably going to want a frontline strength-based fighter. So that means normally Abelard or Heinrichs, and they'll normally cover your athletics or Carouse. Heinrichs also comes with the ability to, partially cover Lord Xenos because he has based and advanced skill Lord Xenos, so he can actually get some rerolls on those checks, even though he is a low intelligence based character. Argenta comes with high agility and perception, so she is going to be very good for awareness and demolitions. You can sometimes go for Lord Imperium, but that's mostly just because there's an items to it. Chances are she won't actually make the skill checks on the highest difficulty. Then you're going to want to think about your persuasion. Now, the reason why persuasion is so good is there is an item item that allows you to essentially win the game from the first turn, which is the Black Ring of the Inquisition. This comes with the ability Inquisitor's Tenant, which gives you a whole host of buffs as well as guaranteeing a first turn heroic action. This is something you're going to want to go on a high fellowship character, but probably a grand strategist. Normally I use this with Cassia because Cassia is the best buffer in the game, so she makes the perfect grand strategist. Jay, because you don't want her to overlap, normally I make as either an overseer to AoE buff or even a master tactician to add different buffs that way. So then that will leave one last slot, and from that we still haven't really covered Lore Warp, but you're going to need to do that on Cassia for her navigator checks. None of the companions are quite built for it, but that does still leave Medicae. So who we could take to Medicae could even be one of our executioners. So normally I would throw in, say, someone like Cabela. Now, a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to think, well, I don't want to use Argenta, Cassia, Jay, Heinrichs, and Cabela, but this is just one way to cover it. You've got to think, if you move someone out, you need someone else to cover the skills. So Argenta can very easily be replaced by Ulfar or even Solomon. If you drop out Jay for Pascal, you're going to have a lot harder time to then fit in the rest of your skills. If you drop out Cabela because, say, you wanted Yeralit or Idra, that means you're going to have to work very hard to cover that Medicae skill. And then even if in the late game, say you wanted to use Mirazhai, you'd have to normally swap out Heinrichs. So you've got to think where you're swapping people in and out and where you're going to be using them and what skills you're going to be covering with them. This is how you're going to make your ideal team combinations. Keep that in mind when you're doing it. If you want to have more in-depth guides, I am going to link my new player playlist into the first comment of this video, because I have a lot of videos in there for people to check. But this is going to be sort of a little bit of a fast and loose way to go into it. At the end of the day, you just got to think, what are the primary skills of each companion? Officers will tend to use fellowship, then you will have soldiers will tend to use agility and perception, warriors will tend to use strength and toughness, then your stuff like blade dancers, they're going to tend to go into Medicae as well as sometimes either agility or perception, and your operatives are going to go heavily into intelligence as well as a bit of perception. So there's going to be a little bit of overlap in different areas, and some of the companions will have unique areas to cover. And when you think about what you're doing for your rogue trader, you're going to want to think, well, I'm the base here, so if I'm covering these two skills, how do I work my team around it? So in this case, I have another warrior, which is my Lord Admiral build, which is what I'm using. So chances are I would probably drop one of the warriors from the party, and then I would take someone else that could cover some other skills. And then that way I've got a wider array of skills being covered. When you think about your team combinations, think about not just battle combinations, because you are going to want at least one officer in there, such as Cassia, but then you need to think about those sort of combinations for covering those skills. This will be what will help you get through on your journey.